Thank you. Western Mass News is your local election authority. Less than 24 hours after the polls closed on Super Tuesday, we're looking at the major takeaways from the presidential primary.
Western Mass News reporter Wesley Days is live in studio with more details on the Massachusetts results. Wesley, you're hearing from election officials. The turnout was low.
Extremely low, Abby and Chris, but that's not the only big story coming out of yesterday's race here in the Bay State. Voters, particularly Democrats, made their stance on their presidential choices very clear.
We've never seen it like this before.
Voters went from choosing somebody to nobody.
Typically when people vote no preference, they just leave a blank ballot. So I think this gave individuals an opportunity to actually circle in a little bubble and say, I am voting intentionally for none of the candidates.
Springfield Election Commissioner Gladys Oyola Lopez shares with Western Mass News that a little over 8% of Springfield voters chose that option, and our latest data shows across the Bay State, overall 9% of voters followed suit.
Especially in these swing states, the no preference vote has been part of a general effort by left-wing Democrats to make it clear that President Biden is not on the same page as them.
Our conversation on the power of no led us to local history professor John Back. He says those votes should come as a warning.
If I was the president's campaign manager, I would realize that there is certainly not just a lack of enthusiasm, but an actual growing movement.
He says while Democrats used that option, Republicans had another choice to show their disdain for former President Donald Trump.
Almost everyone chose either the president, former president, and he won by a comfortable margin, or Nikki Haley, who would basically be seen as a protest candidate.
But the time has now come to suspend my campaign.
With that protest option now gone and voters heading towards a November rematch of Trump and Biden sending deja vu throughout the country, one voter tells us he may be on the Biden train, but
I think both candidates are kind of not the best option.
Abby and Chris, coming up tonight at 6, you'll hear more from those two voters. Even though we're seeing a strong no preference surge right now, we've seen bigger before, guys. Actually, according to numbers from the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office, back in 2012, when President Obama was on the re-election ticket, 10.9% of Democratic voters chose no preference. We're currently at 9.4 right now in the Bay State for this current primary presidential election. Those officials say we typically see higher numbers for that choice when an incumbent president, like we are right now, seeing what President Biden is on the ballot. Reporting live in studio, Wesley Days, Western Mass News.
All right.